we are seeing again a lot of old disease or new diseases popping up. And coccidiosis much probably was one of the oldest disease described in the poultry industry. So we are celebrating 136 years since the first time that Armyria avian at the time was described. And the question is why we are not getting a lot of success to overcome the problem caused by the Armyrias. In the last 100 years, we learn a lot, but be pretty sure that we have a lot to learn in the coming future. And why? Because sometimes the problem that is happening is caused by us. For example, now we are living in some parts of the world. The situation that the layers, the egg production is changing for the traditional cage to the automatic cage or for the free range production method. And in that case, coccidiosis started to popping up again as a big problem, a big issue. And why? Because it's not very common. You use drugs to treat coccidiosis in layers, raised and here in cage. But when you move these or to a free range system or to automatic cage, the bird started to have the possibility to intake oocytes again from the feces. So we are creating or we are offering to the Armyria a new times to develop again. Okay, so this is important because this is a not new disease, but we still learning every day when we are creating the environment to have the disease. And sometimes makes sense. Okay, this is not a really important disease because I don't have. In that case, I don't have to take care about this. But in case of coccidiosis, it's not true. And why? Because this is the data, for example, for US, only for one country, is 0.8 billion US dollars was estimated to be damaged the American broiler industry in the year 2017. So it's enough money to promote or to take care about this, to control, to avoid this kind of losses. And another topic is, okay, if I'm not seeing the disease, if I'm not seeing blood in the feces, I don't have coccidiosis. It's not true. And why? Because one of the main problems caused by the coccidiosis is the worsening of feed conversion. And everybody knows in this room how important is in question of cost the feed in a layer, in a broiler, or in a broiler breeder. How much is the cost of the feed in our production cost? If you're putting some money in the trash, one of the causes could be the coccidiosis. Okay. This is only our overall review, just to remember, because it's always important we have these concepts very fresh in our mind. Know the past exactly to dealing with the future or with the situation that we are facing now. So just to remember, Armyria is a fecal oral transmission, is an endogenous and exogenous life cycle. They have a huge reproductive capacity. Infection, specific, this is really important because different kind, for example, these are not a virus or not a bacteria vaccine. It's a protozoa vaccine. Sometimes we can have cross-infection between, for example, turkeys and broilers, or another kind of birds, for example, in the case of influenza and the industrial birds. In case of the Armyrias, no. This is specific, or it means the Armyrias that we are seeing here in the chickens only can be transmitted and affected chickens. These Armyrias cannot affect turkeys, cannot affect pigeons, cannot affect any kind of other birds. It really matters. Sometimes we forget this concept, and why? Because we have in the world different vaccines against coccidiosis, or we have different kind of drugs. And sometimes you're just looking for the areas that we can see, for example, or you're looking for Tanella or for Maxima or Cervulina, and we forget it. We have another four that also can affect the bird. And there is no cross protection between these species. It means if I have a problem with Emilia brunetti, for example, or Emilia necatrix, I have to look for a tool to fight against this Emilia, not against Emilia maxima, for example. That means, for example, if I do vaccination in one layer flock, or in a brother-breeder flock, or in a brother flock, and one of the Emilias that I have in the field is not in the composition of the vaccine, I'm using the wrong vaccine. Okay? We have specific lesions, site on the gut. Everybody knows this. We have some pictures in the coming slides. And is resistant to extreme conditions. This is also against us because sometimes, in most part of the time, is not easy with clean up a farm, or is not possible. That should be the correct word. Clean up a farm against the Emilias. So the clinical signs really depends from the number and the pathogenicity of the oocytes, the immunological status of the birds. So these 3 points here really matters as well when you think about the control of the coccidiosis. It's not only which type of Emilia I have, because sometimes I'm seeing one Emilia, one infection, because in that time I have a huge quantity of those sites in the gut in that time. So, but I have to consider that in the environment we don't have only one, but we have mainly the long-last birds, the long life cycle birds. We have the all 7 species playing a role in a farm. Okay, this is confirmed for all the surveys did in the last years. In this kind of birds, it doesn't matter in each country, it's possible we find the 7 species, for example, in layers or in breeders. If it's not possible to find this, it's because you are not using the correct tool to make the diagnosis. To remember, here we can cross a line here. This we can divide the cycles of the Emilias in endogenous and exogenous. This is really important because we have this counting with this even when you think about the vaccination. Because this cycle here, it depends of the time, it depends of the Emilia, will be important to produce an immune response. This is the 7 famous strains, chicken Emilias, that we have in the world, recognized by the scientific community. You can see here, we have the Maxima, the Brunetti, Emilia Tanella, Emilia precox, Emilia necatrix, Emilia cervulina, and Emilia mitis. Sometimes you can have a question, why I'm missing sometimes 1 or 2 Emilias that's not mentioned here? It's a very simple reply. If this Emilia is not here, it's because the Emilias that you are missing here is not recognized by the international scientific community. Probably for the misdiagnostic, for the people that believe that the Emilias that you are missing here is not mentioned here. Okay, we have a lot of papers to prove that. About the sites, I will pass this very fast because we don't have a lot of time, but you can see, depends on the Emilia, we have specific sites on the gut. For example, the cervulina is more here in the duodenum, and the Emilia Tanella is more here in the cecum, and this is the Emilia, for example, that we can see the blood in the feces. The differentiation of the species regarding the pre-patent period. It's important as well when we are thinking that the strategy to control the coccidiosis, because as I already mentioned, it's really important that we understand that the cycle of the Emilia, that you have the exogenous and the endogenous cycle, and you have the time to have this cycle completed. It is really dependent for the species of the Armenia. For example, for precox, we have 83 hours to have a cycle completed. And for the Myrmecatrix, we have 138 hours to have the same cycle completed. It means if I have a vaccination, or flock vaccinated, then you have to count with the 2 or 3 recyclings. I have to make the count for the long time pre-packing period. And why? Because after that, this 2 or 3 cycle, I have the immune response already built up for the chicken. Again, some pictures that you're very familiar with this. So this is Armenia that are not recognized as Armenians, I already mentioned. We have here Armenia Mivati that have a lot of papers proving that the Armenians are different species and can be classified into one of the 7 species already described. So for the control strategy, we have not too many options that is not bring a new option. Indeed, you have to deal, or you have to negotiate, you have to think in how you use, in a very clever way, in a very smart way, the tools that I already have. The anti-coccidial drugs programs, everybody knows what's the problem is. Most probably 15 or 20 years ago was the last time that a new drug was released, was launched, and for the future, the bad news is no other company is developing new drugs to treat coccidia. And why? Because it's quite expensive, and the restrictions to use the drugs is turning harder and harder and harder. So our challenge now is or use the drugs that we already have available, or make a combination, or think in a different way, in a different approach, mixing drugs and vaccination, or only vaccination with another product that also can protect against coccidiosis. So about the coccidial drugs, we can divide these in chemical ionophores and the vaccines. What is important is a one single dose vaccine. It's not necessary, or it's not recommended. Do revaccinations when you're thinking about the COVID vaccines. Okay, that is crucial. And why? Because if you make mistakes during the vaccination process, or I do mistakes to elect the correct vaccine, but probably I will miss the protection for one Armenia or all the Armenians if I kill, for example, the vaccine during the vaccination process. They induce an immune response for the first few days after the vaccination, because we can consider 3 or 4 weeks after the vaccination that we have already the immune response established, and we can manage the birds independently, not think more in the coccidiosis. It does not interfere with the immune response for the other vaccines, and also the spectrum of activity of the vaccines depends exclusively on the species included. It's really important, and why? Remember, we have the 7 species well recognized that can be affected the birds. Flocks more health. For example, if you have a flock, doesn't matter if it's layers, brother breeders, or brothers, if you have a flock free of coccidia, we have flocks more health, more uniform, and more pigment. Know that in some part of the world, the pigmentation is really important also when you do brothers. Okay, no residue in the meat or even the egg. This is, the opinion public is raising a lot. Is always popping up this discussion to know if you can transfer the antibiotic resistance, the drug resistance from the chickens or from the livestock production to the humans. And if you're not using drugs, you can claim, okay, I'm free of drugs because I'm using vaccines. And meets the most demanding residue control legislation in the world. So for countries that is willing to increase the exportation, is really important as well. We have no barriers technical barriers that will block the commercial deals. Points to be considered to develop an effective vaccine against coccidiosis, so the vaccine, or to develop or to use a vaccine coccidiosis, we have to be sure which coccidia are included in the vaccines. We have we should have the 7 species included in the 2 birds that have the long life cycle, breeders, layers, or brothers slaughtered in a late age. Keep in mind, there is no cross protection between any of the 7 species. If someone pushed the information that, okay, no, you can use a vaccine with 3 species because we can control the other species, this is not true. Or if no, you don't just take care about the 3 species or 4 species or 5 species that you can see, you are missing the news that you are not seeing, but will affect the birds, again, losing or compromising, killing, for example, the efficiency for the feed. That again is the important cost in the cost of foods. In all long life cycle poultry population, the existence of the 7 mirror species can be verified. Again, you can take all the papers published. We have published very old and papers very new. For example, last year was published 1 paper from India that they found the 7 species in layers. In 2015, the same, for example, in Brazil or in Europe as well. So we have to select the strains because we have virulent and attenuated strains. We can play with this. This belongs more or less, for example, till now, this question belongs to the vaccine development. But now, this is the problem, the topics that belongs, or we can share the responsibility between the vaccine provider, because you have to train your crew, vaccination crew, but also is the responsibility for the farmer. To choose, for example, the correct methodology of the vaccination, and why? Because it's really important to have a uniform infection at the same time, okay? And we don't have here new information because we can apply the vaccines in the muscle route or individual route, with water we spray in the hatchery or via eye drop. And the question is, why you have to introduce or have to change the vaccine in a new region 3 minutes? What? For me, after 10. Look here. So, I already have other vaccines. So, we have to refute, and also we have to ask, okay, the good would be better or not? Or the good is enough? And be pretty sure that the good is never enough. The optimum can be reached, okay? This is a summary, for example, for 28 assays that we did, for example, comparing the vaccination by spray and the vaccination by eye drop. That's what this means, this is shown to us. When you are performing the vaccination by spray in the first day of age, with all the vaccines available in the market, we can have the maximum infection rate around 30%. It means when you, in the second day of age, you have 70% of the birds without vaccines. That means the recycling of the vaccine should be very, very good to have in a very early stage the maximum birds vaccinated, but counting with the recycling of their millions from the vaccine in the food. When you apply this by eye drop, even if you have 5 to 7 days of age, you can reach the lowest rate is 95% of rate, and you can achieve 100% is possible. This is a big number to guarantee that if you are facing a problem with a coccidiosis, even if what's vaccinated, much probably if I move the vaccination methodology from spray to eye drop, much probably using the same vaccine, much probably I will get better results. okay? And why? Because this is, the last slide was good, but this is the better. When we apply the vaccine by spray, we can reach 40,000 oocytes per bird, and not through all our meters. But when we apply by eye drop, we can have 36 million. It means 90 times more. If you can compare 9 times more, and 100% of the birds, for sure you have a flock better vaccinated when you apply the vaccine by eye drop compared with the spray. Also, it will be very important, for example, to make the management of the vaccination very easy, because that, for example, we have, for example, one vaccine that can be mixed with the live virus vaccine. You can use the cocci vaccine, for example, as diluent to apply by eye drop together with the Newcastle bronchitis or Gumboro vaccine in the first week of age. How we can prove this? If you make the titration of the live virus vaccine using SPFX, comparing the sterile diluent with the cocci vaccine used as a diluent for the vaccine, and you can see that we don't have any effect on the titers, or the titers made in the SPFX. This is for bronchitis, this is for Gumboro, this is for Newcastle. This is serology as well. You can see we have an infection. So, but what's our meaning when you think in the vaccination or in a control program for the cocci? We have to be the better protection rate, but also the better performance rate. Okay, we already show the slide to you that sometimes when you improve the performance, you lose some protection, because that our goal here is find exactly the correct point to have the better protection level and the better performance level as well. And for the cocci vaccine, we have some key critical points that we can share the responsibility. The storage and the vaccination. Looks very simple, but this is the main points that we can see a lot of mistake every day. For example, the vaccine have to be stored between 2 to 8. But normally, you can go to the farm and you see this kind of this condition to storage. Here, for example, is below the 0. For example, when we ship the vaccine from the lab, we have to take care a lot about the temperature. For example, we avoid the contact from the vaccine directly to the ice. For example, put some styrofoam plate to separate this, to avoid exactly to freeze the vaccine. But when you go to the farm, this is very easy to see. You can see the vaccine directly in touch with the ice. And this is a very common situation. This is a field situation. You have liquid vaccines freezed because they have a bad condition for storage. The vaccination, remember, is a very process that we have to take care about. This sometimes looks very simple, but the simple sometimes is hard to accomplish. Now, the environment for the vaccination is also important. It should be quiet, should be clean. And why? Because we are doing a vaccination. If you go to the hospital to vaccinate your children or yourself, or for example your parents, you enter in a room, you don't have a lot of noise, you don't have a lot of dust, you don't have a big mess. You are in a very clean room with a lady that sometimes is not so polite, but okay. That's our vaccination crew. This is a question. When you compare, we cannot have a big mass environment to perform the vaccination. And we have to take care about this, be patient, and why? Because we are applying this vaccine in one single time for one opportunity that we have to protect the bird for their whole entire period. The audit is crucial because it's very easy to see. For example, sometimes if you don't have a lot of patients or if you have a crew vaccination trained, for example, each drop that you are seeing here in the floor is one bird that didn't receive the vaccine. same here. Each drop in the nail is a drop that's not reach out the gut for the birds, because it comes directly to the nail. We have to take care. It's very easy to understand why if I perform the vaccination by eye drop, the vaccine comes through the digestive system. It's possible with a blue dye. We can check this in the farm. Spray vaccination. We can do a better spray vaccination to mitigate exactly the risk to have lowest level of or size or dosage for each bird. We have checked these items here. Important. Always have the vaccine suspension circulating by air. For example, this is one example in a hatchery. A very common process, but if you not take care about this, again, the easiest is you compromise the bird, the protection against cocci for all entire life for the bird. That's going to keep for the 3 minutes. So the target, better in front. This we can agree between nutritionists and between veterinarians that if you have a better in front, you at the end you have better results. So technical results, more eggs or more chicks per chicken. For layers, again, just to remember, to remind what I mentioned at the beginning, since we are moving the traditional way to rear or to raise the birds from the traditional cage to the free range or to the automatic cage, we are creating the environment to have the coccidiosis again. Okay? It's a survey that should prove that we found that all the silver species in birds with 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and 10 weeks. So what this is important here. It also would be possible we spray the vaccine, or perform the vaccination by spraying the hatchery. But in cage, for automatic cage, for example, we should use a specific paper to guarantee the recycling of those cysts for the first 2 or 3 weeks of age. Okay? Again, it's a very simple management that we will guarantee that the vaccination against cocci works well. Also, you can possibly use the blue dye. You see, it's possible to perform it in the same way as you perform the bronchitis. For example, in that case here, we can mix the cocci vaccine with the bronchitis and perform the vaccination against bronchitis and cocci in the same moment. Yeah, that's all.